G'day guys, and welcome back to your English Aussie, and welcome to the Talking Tactics podcast, where we'll talk through all the tactical observations from the game week. We'll then go through all of the statistics for the best defenders, midfielders and forwards, and give you an unbiased and balanced view of who the best players are to buy for game week 24 and looking forwards. Today I've got a jam-packed episode for you where we'll talk through all the games and then give our final opinion on the best player picks. We're also going to include a little section at the end on the assistant manager chip versus the triple captain chip for game week 24 and why I highly recommend that you do not play your assistant manager chip. However, I will give some important information surrounding the assistant manager chip, so please stay tuned for that. If you haven't yet subscribed, click that subscribe button, like the video if you enjoy this, and please help this channel grow. Just a small channel currently sitting at 1k subscribers on the push to 2k. So starting off with the tactical observations, and we'll talk through Wolves versus Arsenal. Obviously Lewis Skelly picking up the red card for what really was a common foul. Like you do that all the time. You just trip the guy up, look to stop the quick counter attack, take a yellow card and get on with the game. The referee for some reason thought that a red card was an appropriate punishment for that. Completely ridiculous decision. I do feel sorry for Arsenal fans there. However, that red card has been overturned and he won't be banned for any game weeks. I think Lewis Skelly's been a really fantastic addition to this Arsenal side on the left. And as we talked about last week, really gave them a few more dimensions to their attack. Being able to overlap, underlap down that left-hand side, open up more avenues and more space for Lewis Trossard as he became a threat. We did obviously a deep dive into the Arsenal tactics last week, so if you do want to hear a little bit more in-depth discussion around Arsenal, perhaps why they're struggling to score so far this season and what they need to be successful for the title push, have a look at that episode on my channel. I'll put a link to it up above somewhere so you can check it out. The red card in this game, or the two red cards, really essentially spoiled the game from a tactical perspective. There's not too much to take away from this game. I think Arsenal managed to win ugly, which is what they need to be able to do in order to stay with Liverpool in this title race and really challenge for the title. They did defend resolutely with those 10 men. Saliba being back in that side, he looked a lot more composed, calmer, and I thought that back four just looked better without Timber at centre-back and Partey at right-back. Wolves again just lacked a lot of cutting edge in their play. Cunha looked all out of the game, didn't look like he ran around a lot, didn't put a lot of effort in. I think a lot of the Arsenal fans that I discussed this with, who obviously there are transfer rumours at the moment, of Cunha potentially moving to Arsenal, was saying that they didn't enjoy watching him play and didn't look like he was the right player for them. I tend to agree, not for the reasons that they mentioned, but actually just because I think Cunha is much more of a number 10. He plays sort of in behind the striker or in that second striker role, and Arsenal are really looking for an out-and-out number 9 who's a goal scorer and can go and score goals, and a poacher, and that's what they need in their team, rather than the sort of creativity of the number 10, which I think Cunha is. So I don't think that's the right transfer for them, but we'll see what materialises in this transfer window. Moving on to Liverpool versus Ipswich, I think Ipswich clearly remain the team to target from an offensive standpoint. They've been conceding lots and lots of goals, even when they move to their sort of 5-4-1 setup. They just haven't been managing to be a resolute defence. Liverpool looks really fantastic this game week, and I would say for anybody that owns Gakpo, I thought that was really great news for you, his performance. And actually it was so good that during the match they swapped Diaz out from the from the central striker role out to the left-hand side, and they pushed Gakpo into that sort of number 9 role, where he showed that he could really be a sort of physical, imposing presence, which is what I think Darwin brings to that number 9 role, that sort of different style, physical, imposing presence there. And I think that if Gakpo can show that he has the ability to play in that role as well, that only benefits his minutes going forwards, especially when Diego Jota looks to come back into that team. And to be honest, I think it could be what his best position could be, because he does have good finishing. And I do think on the left-hand side, once teams really realise that his main move is just to cut back inside on his right foot and get a shot away, they're going to start showing him more and more down the line as they do their homework on him. And I think that number 9 role might be really nicely suited for him. Just a small thought on how I've been watching Liverpool over the last few weeks. A lot of people have been saying they think this Bournemouth game could be a really difficult game for them with the great form that Bournemouth have been in of late. However, I would say that the way Liverpool play and the way Bournemouth play might actually lend into a part of Liverpool's attacking play where they often look to hit those diagonals from Virgil van Dijk at centre-back, out wide to Salah, over the top on the other side to Gakpo. And the way Bournemouth have been playing over these last few weeks is sort of a bit of a rock and roll style under Iraola, with this not crazy, but a very, very high press, where a lot of their players are committing forwards into that press. And we'll talk a little bit more about Bournemouth and how they play in their section. But I would say that this does really give the opportunity for both Salah and Gakpo to get in more of those one-on-one opportunities, for perhaps Salah to get in those chances where he gets in behind the back of the defenders from those sort of over-the-top long balls from Van Dijk. And the Liverpool runners, if they can sort of bypass that high press of Bournemouth, with that sort of those long diagonals, could cut through this Bournemouth defence. And actually, I feel like Liverpool, with the different ways that they design their offence, could actually score quite a lot against Bournemouth. And this game might turn out quite differently to people think, with a big win for Liverpool this week. So definitely keep that at the back of your mind when you are making your transfers this week. And I do think both Gakpo and Salah, and of course Diaz, are great options for this game week coming up. We will go on to talk about one other Liverpool asset who I do think could be a bit of a hidden gem for Liverpool. Perhaps not long term, but over this short term period, he could provide some great returns. Moving on to Southampton versus Newcastle this week. And what I would say about this game is it's really nothing we haven't seen from either of those teams over the last few game weeks, and things that we've been talking about on this sort of tactical analysis channel. Again, Southampton in Djuric's counter press, that sort of second line of midfield has just not timed the way that it's moving towards the ball well enough, and really struggled in terms of picking up that sort of second line once the initial press is broken, able to get up and press that sort of second line of offence. Newcastle, again, they've been pressing those teams super high, made Southampton have to go long quite a lot, which again, now they're not under Russell Martin, they are able to do this. I think a few weeks ago under Russell Martin could have been 7-0 to Newcastle with that high press that they had. Alexander Isak again in really great form. Anthony Gordon looked fantastic on the wing, as did Jacob Murphy on that other wing for Newcastle. The three in the middle, Tonali, Bruno and Joelinton, the legs that they have in there and that high press, as we've spoken about, the teams with the higher work rate in the midfield and the sort of higher energy are really causing problems this year in the Premier League. And that does lead us nicely onto that sort of Man City-Chelsea game. And guys, if you haven't subscribed or liked the video yet, please smash that like button. Please subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy this content. Help push on from 1k to 2k subscribers. Please watch the video all the way through if you can. It really does help from an algorithm perspective. And once again, do really appreciate all of you guys so far. Manchester City v Chelsea, a 3-1 win for Man City, and I think this game there really is a lot to talk about. Obviously we've spoken a lot about Man City, how they seem to have solved their attacking issues. They have that sort of KDB Foden interchange on the right hand side. I know it was Bernardo Silva this week, but it's allowed sort of Foden to be able to drift out wide, come into that 10 role. And I think what we saw this week was Bernardo Silva taking out more of that sort of right-sided role. He obviously had to cut back on his right foot to put those crosses into the box. And obviously on the left-hand side you have Doku, Savio, and Marmoush, the new signing, who I thought actually tucked inside and almost played like a second striker role with Haaland. And what was really interesting, and we haven't seen for many weeks for Man City, was Guardiola taking up his old positions down that left-hand side. He's been somewhat minimised from an attacking sense recently. The way that Man City have been playing, where they've been inverting their sort of right back into central midfield when Rico Lewis was playing there, and sort of Guardiola was tucking into a back three. What really sort of happened this week was they just went with two centre backs, and both Nunes and Guardiola were getting forwards into those spaces. Bernardo Silva would often drop a little bit deeper into midfield and into some of those holding roles alongside Kovacic, and Guardiola was given that free rein to roam up that left-hand side, which ultimately resulted in a goal. And again, like those great attacking performances from Guardiola sort of came back again, amusingly enough, in a week that I chose to substitute him out for Trent. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting to see. And when Man City's fixtures do turn again towards the sort of 28, 29, he could be somebody that we look to bring back into our team again for those attacking returns if he continues in that vein. We talked again about Foden in those half spaces in the 18-yard box. We haven't spoken about the sort of additional sort of key that Man City is sort of trying to play with the long ball up to Haaland that I think they unlocked a little bit today. Haaland's really gaining in confidence again, and I thought his hold-up play was actually quite good, although I think he does struggle in the sort of second phases and the passing and moving and interchange there. However, I thought the long balls up to him and his hold-up play was good today, did allow others to come into the game a little bit. And then Chelsea, I mean, there's a lot to talk about from Chelsea. I thought this was a game where they really could have put a lot of pressure on Man City, and with that early mistake from Kusanov at centre-back, allowing the Chelsea goal, what they should have done is they should have really put the pressure on Man City, pressed really high with their super high intensive press that they have, where the defensive midfielders push on into that attacking midfield role. Sometimes they invert one of their fullbacks, and they can ultimately go for sort of like three at the back, the defensive midfield in Caicedo, and then almost like six, like a 5-1. It's almost like a 3-5-1 press with Jackson at the spearhead, which would have caused Man City all sorts of problems trying to play out from the back while they were under pressure at the beginning of their game. What unfortunately happened was Chelsea just didn't press with that same intensity. Enzo didn't really get up that high into that sort of attacking midfield press. They allowed City to bring the ball out, and in that period of time where they were uncertain, they just allowed them that little bit of stability on the ball, which I think was more... I don't think that was the game plan that Maresca put into play, if I'm honest. I do think it was a bit of Chelsea sort of thinking we've already got one goal, let's sort of try to control the game a little bit more, don't push too hard, don't press too high, which I think really worked against them in that game. And then Nicholas Jackson coming off after 60 minutes, he's just struggling for confidence at the moment. We've spoken a lot how I think he's really fantastic in the Chelsea build-up play, been really crucial in the way that he's linked up with Palmer, has that ability to run in behind, been fantastic linking up the play, coming deep, playing the balls in behind for Palmer running onto them. However, his finishing is just really struggling at the moment, and I think that at this stage he might become a risk for minutes when they're looking for some goals at the moment, Chelsea. And Christopher Nkunku, obviously with a better finishing, potentially could come into the side if they don't bring Garnacho in, which are the rumours. Garnacho for Nkunku, which would be a mistake from Chelsea, I think. Moving on to Bournemouth v Nottingham Forest, I think this one again is one of the games where I think you can look at this from a Bournemouth side, and we talk about, I think the first thing we can talk about is they've played the 4-2-3-1 formation all the way through the season, despite the injuries that they've been racking up, having 12 first team players only available at the moment, but they just keep finding rotations and different players coming in all the time into their teams. Their midfielders have been pressing super high into the attacking line. Their centre-backs are pushing up really high up the pitch into the opposition halves. And that's the sort of thing in the press where I think that Liverpool could exploit with their pace in behind. And that's where I think Brentford might get caught out a few times against Liverpool in the double game week. So watch out for that in that game. If you do see that happening, I think that is something that should really be thought about and expected for those engaged FPL managers that can sort of understand the tactical nuances of the game. Outside of that, I think Bournemouth have some really great attacking options. Obviously, in this sort of Iraola rock and roll style that he likes to play, they're going to be a threat offensively. They're going to potentially score goals against a lot of his teams. They definitely could cause Liverpool some problems offensively. And one of the guys that I really like is Dango Ouattara. At 5.0 million, a midfielder playing in the number 9 role is just an absolute steal. And positionally, he's getting into some fantastic positions for Bournemouth and doesn't seem out of place in that number 9 role whatsoever. I thought he looked and played really well in this Nottingham Forest game. Forest, look, just wasn't the game for them. Conceded early, struggled all round. I think they'll put it back together again next week. Palace versus Brentford, 2-1 to Brentford. Now we're starting to see at the beginning of the season, we were talking about, Brentford have this amazing home record and they're not so good away from home. Actually, what the case was and what I've spoken about previously is they just have all the easy games at home and now they've got all the good games away from home. So we should start to see their sort of away form pick up and potentially their home form suffer a little bit, which I think we have seen in the last few weeks. I think Wissa and Mbeumo again looked fantastic. Wissa with that incredible footballing IQ, like positionally, you just can't take your eyes off him when you're watching football and you're looking at sort of those tactical things that Brentford do. Wissa's just always popping up in those pockets of space. He's always been doing that ever since he was playing, even in the midfield behind Ivan Toney. He was always popping up with last-minute goals for Brentford, and he just continues to look so dangerous. And with this upcoming game week against Spurs next week, they could cause them all sorts of problems, especially if it becomes a game where it's end-to-end transition sort of stuff. Brentford are so dynamic in transition, and the pace that they play with and the pace that they attack with could cause Spurs all sorts of problems unless Ange finds something different. One point for Crystal Palace. I do think Munoz is great down that right wing. I don't want to talk too much about their defence at the moment, just because I'm sort of thinking towards that game week 29 at the moment and whether you want to be bringing in Palace assets in case they do blank in that game week. I do see Sarr becoming somebody that I would be looking to get out of my team at the moment. I think there is a potential for him to be rotated with the introduction of the new I think 19-year-old Esse, the new Palace's new signing, who is sort of an attacking midfielder, had a great debut scoring a goal, and also Nketiah sort of chewing up those minutes of Sarr. I think he's someone that I would probably think about moving, not as an immediate issue, but if you are looking to sort of go into one of those Bournemouth midfielders from 25, 26, maybe Sarr is a really nice route out of that side. And I think, is this finally? No, a couple more. Aston Villa v West Ham, 1-1 draw. I thought that Rodgers and Watkins and Aston Villa really suffered from one of those post-UCL hangovers, as they frequently do. Didn't have the pace and dynamism in their team, and suffered again late on, West Ham picking up the goal. West Ham under Graham Potter, similarly to how Brighton did this under Potter. are sort of getting a few nicer attacking patterns into their team. They still maintain the same central midfield defensive issues in transition. However, they are trying to manage this with, over the last 2 game weeks, Potter's implemented this sort of 3-4-2-1 formation, meaning that West Ham do have the extra centre-back also to be able to step up in certain situations, dealing with those counter-attacks, and allowing those still having 2 centre-backs, one marking, one dropping, and a little bit more pace in the back line with Kilman and Cresswell in there alongside Mavropanos this week. Brighton versus Everton. Under David Moyes, we had Matt in our live stream this week talking about Everton under David Moyes and how they've been progressing from an offensive standpoint and sort of still maintaining that defensive solidity under Sean Dyche. I did say I would take a closer look at them in this game week, and what I found is that David Moyes, although they still have that sort of defensive structure that they had under Sean Dyche, what he's looking to do is get his attacking players to not have such a defensive-minded and defensive responsibilities, and allow those sort of Ndais and their wingers to be able to receive the ball higher up the pitch because they're not defending so deep. And that's when he wants them to be on the ball in those dribbling situations. And I would say that if you are an Everton fan, or if you are looking for Everton offensive players, that really bodes well for an Ndai in the future. He's ideally wanting him to get on the ball in these more higher up areas and then cause problems for opposition defences. And you really saw that. I think if you go and look at those Everton attacking players and even a heat map from the game against Brighton, you can see that they're a lot higher positioned up the pitch than they have been in previous weeks. And I think David Moyes deserves a lot of credit for getting this Everton team to show a lot more potential from an offensive standpoint, and I was really impressed again by their performance. Obviously Calvert-Lewin injury, a bit of a blow for them. I think they will struggle. I don't think Beto sort of has the same pace and running in behind, but we will see how they go. I think Ndai is going to be a really nice player for them over the upcoming weeks, and if they can get something to click, he will be on penalties, as we saw. Might be a really nice differential going forwards for Everton. Finishing off with Fulham v Man United. Fulham have been in this sort of 4-2-3-1 formation over the last 3 weeks. It's seen Robinson drop into more of an orthodox left back, sort of left wing back role. And I did want to touch on this just because I have been quite bullish on Robinson over the last few weeks, given that he'd been playing in that sort of left wing role for Fulham. But I would say that now they've sort of stuck with this system, which really hasn't been working that well for Fulham. I think I've soured on Robinson a little bit, and I think he's probably no longer in my tier 1 buy category. It does sort of fall into the rest of the pack. Now he's sort of moved back into that sort of more orthodox fullback role. Man United, creatively, not a lot going on. I think that whole game really, neither team created too much, and not too much to talk about from either of them really. Tottenham, Leicester, I thought Samare was fantastic in that Leicester press, especially in the second half. I think in the first half, Leicester sat off a little bit. Tottenham gave them a little bit too much respect, allowed them to bring the ball out of their back line and then sort of get at Leicester a little bit with their wingers and midfield. In the second half, Leicester pressed them really high up the field, caused Tottenham a lot of problems, made them play a lot more direct and longer, and the physical profile of that Tottenham attack with Son, Kulusevski and Richarlison, and also lacking Solanke, just didn't bode well to that more direct style of play, and they struggled to hold on to the ball. And then when they were trying to sort of play out from the back, Leicester picked them off a couple of times in that high press and managed to break on them and then grab those 2 goals, which Tottenham just couldn't recover from. And I think, look, I'm obviously very supportive of Ange being an Aussie manager, but he is struggling at the moment, and I do think that injuries do have a lot to play with it. When you're missing so many key players in that side, it is just so difficult for them both in offense and defense now. They just don't have that final creative ability. They're missing their main striker. Defensively, you know, they're missing some Van de Ven, Romero, their stalwart to their defence, Vicario. It is difficult for them, but they're really going to need to find something next week against Brentford if they want to sort of pick up going forwards. That rounds out my tactical observations. We will go on now to the statistical observations for this week. All of the best defenders, midfielders and forwards. Just want a quick shout out, if you haven't yet liked the video, please smash that like button if you've enjoyed this content. Please subscribe to the channel if you like this content and you like this sort of stuff and you're interested in these different nuances to FPL that help you become an even better FPL manager and find those sort of differentials or different picks that other people aren't seeing, or the players that you shouldn't be picking through these sort of different observations. So please subscribe to the channel, really help us grow this small channel. Thank you guys for watching so far. Let's get on with the defender analysis. So in this defender analysis, I think the main sort of statistically guy that I want to talk about is obviously Trent Alexander-Arnold. For the double game week, fantastic pick. For Wolves after, still a nice pick. I think his sort of offensive statistically are slightly overstated from some games earlier in the season, but recently he has been pushing forwards more and more for Liverpool. He has started to be playing a slightly more offensive role in a lot of games, perhaps just because Liverpool haven't been always ahead in games, and he's had to be pushed on as Liverpool have been searching for goals in a lot of these games. But also perhaps slightly changing up Liverpool's sort of offensive system. That has meant we have been starting to concede a few more goals of late, and that's the way that historically Liverpool have been when they've pushed on their fullbacks higher, is they have been caught on the counter more frequently, and that is something you've seen, that Trent's not been getting back into those positions. Liverpool have conceded some goals through crosses down that left-hand side. Robinson we did just speak about. I had him on here as I wanted to sort of talk about how his XA, XG has been decreasing as he sort of moved back towards that sort of orthodox left-back, left-wing-back role. Daniel Munoz, Luca Dean, I do think are really nice options. Munoz, I'm thinking just wait till after 24 and we see the results of the EFL Cup semi-finals, and then we can make a call on whether to go for Palace players or not. Luca Dean is somebody over the next 4 weeks that has a really nice fixture run that you might want to look to go into. And then some other options, Lewis Hall, Hodgson of Bournemouth, Gabriel obviously, Kirkez also at Bournemouth, and Milenkovic are some options for you to consider with some reasonable fixtures outside of Newcastle and some potential for attacking returns there. I think Ryan Aït-Nouri of Wolves will start to come into it, possibly from game week 28-29 as Wolves fixtures swing there. Milenkovic and Hall, along with probably Hodgson and Kirkez, are the guys that I'd be looking at. I probably wouldn't be looking to bring in Lewis Hall at the moment, just because Newcastle will most likely be blanking in 29. But I will be able to make all those decisions for you midweek in game week 24. I'll be doing an updated chip strategy video for you there as well, and I'll be making sure I update these transfer plans to really clear out who you should be looking to bring in and who you shouldn't ahead of that blank game week in 29. In the midfielders, obviously Mo Salah and Cole Palmer are the main two guys here. Not much to talk about with them, as you all know. I wouldn't be transferring Cole Palmer out of my team if I was anybody. Look at those next 4 fixtures: West Ham, Brighton, Aston Villa, Southampton, all potential for goals in those games. Especially, I think, Brighton and Aston Villa, who could play into Chelsea's hands a little bit by sort of coming at them a little bit more offensively. In that sort of mid-price range, I think Aaron Gordon, Phil Foden and Brian Mbeumo are all players that I really like around that range. The next 4 games for Mbeumo in particular, right at the bottom of this list here, should be highlighted at least in orange. Tottenham, West Ham, Leicester and Everton. Fantastic game weeks for Brian Mbeumo. I think he's probably would be my #1 pick in this area. Outside of that, I really like Phil Foden. I really like the tactical changes that Man City have employed, how he's able to get into those half spaces in the 10, inside the 18-yard boxes, with the cutbacks into those spaces, and then towards the end of the game, he sort of pushes on into like a false 9 sometimes for Manchester City. So I really do think he could be nice. Even through this difficult fixture run, I would look to hold Foden if you do have him, and I would potentially consider, potentially after the double in 24, where you're looking to prioritise Liverpool and maybe some Everton assets, I would consider bringing in Phil Foden from game week 25 onwards. Anthony Gordon, I think, remains in the team for now. Someone that I might look to bring out of the team towards sort of that game week 26 period, potentially for a Bournemouth midfielder, which leads me nicely on to sort of the cheaper price options, where I do really like Dango Atara of Bournemouth in that #9 role. Great statistically, obviously not had as many minutes as some of these other players, so those statistics are likely a little bit overstated based off some high XG performances that he's managed to pick up in not a lot of minutes coming on off the bench for Bournemouth early in the season. So again, these statistics don't show everything, which you have to understand because he's been coming off the bench in a few games. These are obviously non-penalty expected goals and assists per 90 minutes. He's maybe got a couple of chances in like 20 minutes in some of those games, and you have to understand that that inflates these statistics. However, having said that, I still think he looks a great option for Bournemouth at 5.0 million. I really like him as an option. As you can see, Kluivert doesn't slot into here anywhere in the top sort of 30 midfielders on this list. I do still think he's a nice option. He's obviously on penalties for Bournemouth and in great form at the moment. But I think if I was going for a midfielder, I would likely go for Dango Atara in the #9 role at this moment in time. Jacob Murphy as well for Newcastle at the moment. I think still is an excellent option in that cut price range. Newcastle excellent going forwards at the moment. But after the next couple of game weeks, he is also somebody that potentially you might want to look to move on to potentially a Bournemouth midfielder. Finally, in the forwards role, we do have Alexander Isak. Not much to talk about there. He is the best striker in the best form at the moment. Secondly, Cody Gakpo of Liverpool. We spoke about him in that tactical section. In for the double game week, in for a penny, in for a pound. He could be magic in that double game week. Potentially even an option for triple captaincy if you do want to go differential and go away from Mo Salah. Not the risk that I would like to take, but certainly one that I've heard floated about at the moment, and not one that really I could say definitely don't go for after his form in recent weeks and the potential for him to be in that #9 role for Liverpool. Next up on these forwards list is Yoane Wissa. What a wonderful player he is. What a fantastic fixture he has against Tottenham in this game week. That really could be points for him. And he has been ticking along really nicely. Really high up there in statistics for XG, XA. He sort of held this level over the past 4, 5, 6 game weeks. Maybe come down slightly from the low 70s in non-penalty expected goals and assists. But he has maintained that, and I would say this is a realistic expectation of where I would expect his statistics to be. Similarly, Chris Wood has maintained that low expected goals and assists, but he is the focal point of that Nottingham Forest attack, and I would still hold on to him. Thank you very much. If you are already have him in your side at the moment. Another interesting option that I thought I would throw out there is Ollie Watkins of Aston Villa. I think he's got some really good fixtures coming up over the next 4 weeks. He has bedded down that starting lineup. The one caveat that I would say is with Aston Villa and the Champions League, likely playoffs coming up, he's definitely somebody that may have some of those off days in following on from the midweek games that Villa play. And guys, once again, if you've enjoyed this content, please remember to subscribe. Please like the video. Appreciate every single subscriber and every single like. Is only a small thing, but it makes such a big difference for this channel. and really gives me the energy and the confidence to keep recording these videos and keep putting them out every week. It is really difficult working 9 to 5 and then finding the time to be putting out 2 videos for you guys every week, live streams and some shorts as well. So I thank all of you that watch these videos all the way to the end and do subscribe and like them. Comment on the videos if you've got any questions, or if you enjoyed the video. All of this helps the YouTube algorithm push out to more people and to grow the following and the fan base as we go forward. I think I'll leave you guys there. The final thing I want to say before we finish is between the sort of assistant manager and triple captain for game week 24. There's lots of things that you guys have heard. Please do not play your assistant manager chip in game week 24. This is such a powerful chip, and there are 2 options at the moment to play it based off what we know. 31 to 33, nobody's talking about it, but there definitely could be a potential of 2 double game weeks in that period of time. Newcastle perhaps could have their double in game week 31 or game week 32 midweek, given that they will not be in the European competitions at that time. If Liverpool turn over Tottenham, their most likely double would be in game week 33. It could be that the Premier League schedule a double in each of those weeks. Then assistant manager chip would be the most powerful chip. You'd be able to get 5 fixtures out of him over that 3 game week period. It could be sensational. Otherwise, game week 36 double through to game week 38. Perhaps Liverpool have wrapped up the league by then. They've got a nice couple of fixtures. I think Brighton in 37. I can't remember 38. Maybe Crystal Palace, something like that. And Liverpool playing a reserve team against potentially teams who have stuff to play for could be a real opportunity to get those table bonuses in 37 and 38, along with a double game week in 36 to use potentially on a gamble on a table bonus, or a slot, or a comfortable team that you want to go for a win. So please don't use your assistant manager chip in game week 24. It is a mistake. Believe me, it's very difficult to predict upsets, and the statistics I think that are out there, only 1 in 10 games you'll be able to pick, or you'll be able to even get someone who gets a table bonus. So very difficult to predict at this time. If you guys are on assistant manager, you've already played it, stuff's gone like that, and you want advice on who to pick it for, tune into my live screen, post in the video, post in the comments below. I'll be doing sort of helpful videos each week and team reviews, and I do my game week predictions on who I think, where I think that table bonus will be best used. This week I am on triple captain. I think if you haven't played it and you haven't played your assistant manager chip, it makes sense to play it in this game week, especially if you haven't used any of your other chips, wildcard 2 or free hit. If you have used some of them, maybe you can save your triple captain for later in the season. However, that's what I've gone for, and I think is the optimal chip strategy at the moment. Good luck to all of you guys this week. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Smash that like, give us a subscribe if you enjoyed. This has been your English Aussie, and I will catch you guys soon. Thank you very much, guys. Have a great game week.